Hi guys, my name is Mohammad. Performance is my passion, and today I'm reviewing the 2007 Toyota Corolla. This is my mom's car. I will be showing you all the ins and outs of this vehicle, and then I'll test drive it so we know the driving style of the vehicle. Let's start off with the front styling of the vehicle. I think it looks pretty good in general for a sedan, especially in this red paint. The grille is finished in black, and it's not annoying chrome. It works on a sedan. It looks good. The headlights kind of have a basic shape to them. They are rounded off on the edges. They're not they don't have as big of edges as the previous Corolla designs, and I think it looks pretty good relative to some competitor sedans like the Ford Focus sedan. This looks a little bit better in my opinion. Now moving on to the side styling of the vehicle, from this angle it does look very good with these hubcaps in my opinion. The car has front disc brakes and rear drum brakes. The suspension is not independent in the rear like competing cars like the similar year Focus, but I think it drives pretty nicely. The mirrors are body colored, unlike my Ford Focus that was black, but this is body colored. They are electric, of course. You do, of course, have 4 doors on the whole vehicle, and since it's a sedan, you get a pretty big trunk as well in the back. So speaking of the trunk, it is very spacious back here. As you can see, I fit here fine, and since this is a sedan, you do have to have a latch back here that you could release yourself. So if the owner of this car is a murderer, you just pull the latch and you get out of here. So this car has a 1ZZ FE6K engine, and it is Toyota's VVTi 16 valve 1.8 liter engine. It has 134 horsepower and 130 pound-feet of torque. It is on par with what the Ford Focus of the same generation had. It's a very powerful motor. In our case, it's made it to a 4-speed automatic transmission. As you can see, there's plenty of space here to work. So if you do your own modifications or things like that on your car, you do have plenty of space to put your hands and do plenty of work. You do get quite a lot of space here to so that if a car was to hit it from the front, you do have some extra absorbing strength up here as well, which is good, and that's why it has a 5-star safety rating for this size of a vehicle. This is a very reliable engine. I haven't had any issues with it in the past 7 years of owning one, and it's very reliable. The only issue I've had up to this point was a battery, and that was part of my fault for leaving the lights on too long. And if you take a look here, you do see the mounting point for your engine, so all you have to do is take these couple of bolts off and your engine pretty much comes out. There's one on the other side as well, under the airbox and the batteries and things like that, but that is why Japanese cars technically, I mean, they have a good rep for this sort of thing. They're reliable, they're easy to work on, and this is a good example of it. All you have to do is unbolt 2 bolts here and 2 as well there, and you just take the motor out if you have to change anything on it. You do have this interesting padding up here to absorb sound and impacts if you were to hit your hood, and that does protect your battery from touching any metal as well. You do get 2 cool cutouts for 2 stickers up here. So this is a diagram for a vacuum hose routing it's a diagram for that, so the vacuum hose routing, and it shows you where to connect the vacuum and things like that. It does tell you the name of the engine here. You do get another sticker up here which tells you about engine coolant, and it tells you to vehicle factory filled with Toyota super long life coolant. So do make sure to use that in your car, guys. I bet you it is very reliable in your car. And you do get another sticker here about emissions control and things like that, more for the California vehicles since they're really strict on this sort of thing. But don't worry, this isn't a Volkswagen diesel in that term, so it's very efficient, I think. And all in all, it's a pretty good engine. It's not as loud as my Focus. There's more sound insulation, so if you want a quieter car, you should probably consider this one over a Ford Focus of this generation. Let's take it for a test drive, and I'll tell you all the features while driving the vehicle and how it drives in general. So, pop it into drive, and sorry, let me pop this out of place. Okay. Alright, so driving the vehicle off the get-go, you do get plenty of steering feel, but it's not as pleasant as, say, my Ford Focus was, since the vibrations are a little bit harsh in this vehicle. That does come down to the tires on this specific car, but all in all, it's pretty good. It's not as comfortable as the Focus was, or some of the competing vehicles like the Honda Civic of this generation. I mean, those were a little bit more tightened down, better handling and things like that, but this isn't bad either. It's more reliable than those two, especially the Focus. It's way more reliable than the Ford, but all in all, it doesn't drive bad. It's not really performance oriented, and since there's no vehicle here, let me do a foot to the floor acceleration run for you guys, alright? I'll probably just go to 40 and then stop, since this is a residential zone, so... As you can see, acceleration is actually very good, and 0 to 60 does take 11 seconds, which is about 3 seconds quicker than my Focus is in this automatic spec, at least. The Focus is way faster if the cars were both equipped with manuals, but that just goes to show how a more modern transmission is way better than what cars from 2002 had. So all in all, it isn't bad. And it's a very good transmission, I feel like. It's better than my Focus. It shifts more smoothly than my Focus. And as you could hear, there is quite a lot of noise inside the cabin. It's not as isolated from the road as the Ford or a Honda Civic. It's a little boomy inside, I would say, and you know, the tires on this specific car do make a little bit of road noise, and they don't help isolate that very well. So that's just how Toyota cost cuts. I mean, how else would they be able to compete in the US with American markets? I mean, with American brands, since you know they're outselling the American brands quite a bit too sometimes in some departments. So if they do want to sell well, they have to sell them cheap, and they do have to they have to cut costs somewhere, and that usually comes down to all the insulation work that has been done to American cars versus these Japanese ones. So all in all, it drives very good. Let's go this way. The brakes on this car are much sharper than the Focus. If I go from, we're doing 30 miles an hour. The brakes are very good, as you can see here. So they're pretty sharp brakes, and this, you know, the ABS does slow down the car very well, and it did lock up a little bit there, but all in all, the brakes are very sharp. I'm impressed. And this does have new brake pads on it and rotors too, so it brakes very well. I'm impressed with it driving. There are issues like, I mean, in some corners, if you drive a little bit vigorously when it's wet or snowy outside, like here, which is a common thing in Minnesota, but all in all, I mean, in snow, you could easily spin this vehicle out. It does oversteer for quite a bit for a front-wheel drive car. It has quite a lot of lift-off oversteer, and the chassis is more prone to understeer, but it does have quite a bit of lift-off oversteer, which is hard to control sometimes. So driving, as I said before, not as sharp as a Focus or a Honda Civic, but pretty good for a car of this price. And this car was more just built to be sold cheaply to you, so I'm impressed with it. So after all the interesting features of the outside of the vehicle, let's take a look at the interior. And before we get started, I want to say that even though it's a pretty basic interior, it's very clean, and I like the design of it. It's very easy to understand. Anybody could just get into the vehicle and drive it. There's no learning curve like you would get with a car like my Ford Focus, since that's a little bit more complex. If you look on the dashboard, it is pretty much symmetrical except for the gauges here and you know, that's for cost cutting since it's easier to design that way. You do get basic radio, basic. This is all Toyota switchgear that we've seen before, so Toyota didn't really bring anything new to the table for this vehicle, but that does mean that it has been tested and proven before, so there's no reliability issues with switchgear in here, which is good. And if you listen to this, I mean, some of the surfaces are pretty scratchy plastic, but then again, if you want to be an importing manufacturer that could still compete with some of the US brands, you do have to cut costs somewhere, and Toyota did it on the interior, so at least the engine and things like that is pretty good. So this car does have a 4-speed automatic transmission, and the shifts are a little bit smoother than what my Ford Focus's transmission has. Either way though, I'd still probably prefer the 5-speed manual available for this vehicle, but since it isn't my car, it's not too big of a deal. You have a normal cable operated handbrake here, so that's pretty nice. You have 2 center consoles here, which is a little bit better than what my Focus has. You get one level here for your tissues and things like that, and one for your GPS switchgear. You also get a 12-volt plug-in here and here as well, so you get 2 of them in this vehicle. And it does also work as an armrest, but it is pretty low, so I don't know how down low you have to be to use this thing as an armrest. But if you do want one, Toyota did give you the option of using one, so that's good. You get 2 pretty standard cup holders here, and as I said before, it does have the very basic Toyota plastic in here, but it's simple. Nothing breaks in this car. Nothing's flimsy at all. I mean, you're never going to break this anytime soon. You get 2 pretty standard airbags, one for your passenger and one for the driver. The airbags did actually have a recall in this vehicle. So you also get 2 coin cups here, but the thing is, I mean, they do look like wood, but they are plastic, and my dad somehow managed to break the one on top, so thanks, Dad. Thank you very much. But since it is broken, I do use it as a speaker. So let's say you have your smartphone with you, you want to play music, and you don't have like one of those little MP3 players that you connect through the cigarette lighter. What do? You put on your music with the speaker here, and you just put it inside this, and it amplifies it pretty loud, actually. So if you do want an aftermarket stereo solution, fear not, Toyota thought of that for you, so just pop in your smartphone, and it fits there pretty nicely. Let's move on to the rear seats as well. As you can see here, back here as well, like the front, the textures are a little bit rough, but you know, they're not gonna break. It's not a Rolls Royce in terms of luxury, but I'll ask you one question. Are you gonna make a Rolls Royce last 10 or 14 years like this car? I don't think so. You will break 1 or 2 things in a Rolls Royce. You will not in this car, so that's a good design from Toyota. Now, something very interesting back here as well. You do get a door pocket. I mean, you get a pocket here, right, in the seat, in the rear of the seat. But for some reason, you don't get one here, and that's actually cost-cutting, you know. It's interesting where these Japanese companies, or any car company, uses techniques to cost-cut things, but that's interesting. Even something like a little pocket in the back of the seat could save them maybe, I don't know, $20 a car, and they still go ahead and do that to save money. So that is why they're able to compete so well in the US. You do have cup holders back here on the console as well. You have 2 of them, and the seats, as always, they go down. You just pull them down like this. There's 2 latches in the trunk, but for some reason the opening is a little bit small here, I'll be honest. I mean, and you can't really do anything about this rear shelf, which is a little weird, but that's just sort of something that you give up with a sedan versus a hatchback. So do keep that in mind when buying one of these vehicles. You have car seat anchors back here, so you put your car seat here somewhere, and then you just anchor them with a specified rope that you get from your Toyota dealer, and you just hook them back here. You get your speakers in the back here, so the subwoofer and the speakers, they're all back here instead of being in the doors, which is a little bit quieter, and in my case, they do rattle a little bit, since I was messing around back there once, and yeah. You get a little bit less legroom here as well, since you get this hump here. So last time I showed you, my dad's Ford Escape did not have that, but since this is a lower car and some of the chassis mounting points is in the middle of the vehicle, they did have to raise this a little bit to still fit that. So you're gonna fit 3 very small people back here, and maybe, but you're not gonna be gonna be as comfortable as, say, like the Ford Escape that I reviewed before, not the Focus. But this has more trunk space than the Focus, so do keep that in mind if you're looking for a cheap vehicle of this size. And you know, so it depends on what you want. If you want more trunk space, you'll go for this sedan. If you want just better comfort in the rear, you'll go for the Focus. Let's take the scores on this vehicle now. So, starting off with the parent category, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Your parents will not argue with you when buying this car. It's not really, it's not known as a dangerous car. It has 5-star safety rating. It's very safe, reliable. It never breaks down ever. And they're going to be satisfied with the price point too. It's a little bit more expensive than the Focus, but I think in the long run you will spend less money on maintenance and things like that. So 10 out of 10 for the parenting category. Fun category, I mean, the driving, okay, it's not as fun as the Focus or the Escape. I mean, the Escape was fun in the way that it's an SUV, you know, it's really comfortable and things like that. And the Focus was just all-out fun with the steering feel and things like that. This vehicle's sort of in the middle, but again, it was designed to be sold as cheaply to you as possible. So I'm going to give it probably a 6 out of 10 in that category. But it's still a pretty good score. So since this is a Toyota and it's very reliable, it's as tough as a brick. You will never break it, and insurance is very cheap on this vehicle. It's pretty reasonable. Compared to some vehicles in its class, it's a little bit more than some of them, but it's still pretty cheap compared to some of the more expensive vehicles in the same class. So I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 for insurance as well. 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 10 is 25, so that does rack up to 25 out of 30, which is, to put that into perspective compared to some other cars that I've tested before, that is the same as a Ford Escape on this channel, and 1 point behind a Ford Focus of the same generation. So, if you are looking for a reliable car that never breaks, and you just want something that you know, every day you get into it and it starts, okay, you should consider buying this car. If you're more into fun, consider cars in the same class like the Honda Civic or the Ford Focus of this generation, since they are a little bit more prone to fun, and they do handle better than this vehicle, as I said while driving it. So it's your pick, really. If you are looking for a nice, reliable car though in this segment, do check this car out. 2007 Toyota Corolla. As always, do like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Press that little bell icon so that you're notified every time I put up a new video. There's really good videos coming, I promise you that. Keep a lookout for the end of March or the beginning of April. There's a lot of good vehicles coming to the channel. Go ahead and comment any concerns you have with the video so I can make better content for you guys. As always, I would like to thank my camera guy, my dad. I am sponsored by Mom and Dad on this channel, so thanks to him I can make these videos for you guys. And as always, if you want any tips for cars, comment them down below or just email me with my Gmail account that I use for the channel. And as always, I'm Mohammad Javed. Performance is my passion, and I'll see you next time on The Young Driver, guys.